Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene had this to say after reportedly viewing an unclassified FD 1020 FBI form alleging that Joe Biden was involved in a bribery scheme. Let's watch.
Back in 2015-2016, Burisma was looking to buy a U.S.-based oil and gas company. And this came from being advised by Hunter Biden and his partners. Biden said Shokin was corrupt. That was around the time of this meeting, was when Joe Biden, as vice president, had said that the prosecutor Shokin was corrupt. They hired Hunter on the board to make the problems go away. That's what they specifically said. Hunter advised that they could raise more money if they bought a U.S. company. So the informant was trying to do the right thing and trying to advise Burisma that they shouldn't go this route. They should hire an attorney, work out their problems that they were being investigated for because they were having other legal problems. And that's why they were being investigated by this prosecutor Shokin. The informant was advising them, don't go this route. Why would you buy another U.S. company while you're under investigation?
And she added this as well.
He also said that he paid $5 million to one Biden and he paid $5 million to another.
President Biden responded to the allegations and the Republican demands to push the FBI document. Let's roll that clip.
The bribery allegation, Congresswoman Nancy Mace says there's damning evidence in the FBI file that you sold out the country. Do you have a response to the congressional Republicans?
Where's the money? I'm joking.
Mr. President,
it's a bunch of malarkey.
So I immediately think of Jared Kushner getting $2 billion from the Saudis shortly after Trump was in office. I also think about the Dulles brothers, who represented United Fruit Company with Sullivan and Cromwell before serving in the foreign policy establishment as the head of the CIA and the Secretary of State, and then cooing the leader of Guatemala, which greatly benefited United Fruit Company. It seems to me that the elites in the United States have always used their power to accumulate money. And so, should we prosecute Jared Kushner? Yes. Should we prosecute Biden if we find this to be true? Also, yes.
I am in support of prosecuting Jared Kushner as well. You can't stand that guy. What's interesting about this document from the FBI form is really the process that it took for Republicans to get access to this. Initially, the FBI tried to pretend it didn't exist, and Republicans somehow got access to it or heard about it through other channels. They eventually got the FBI to admit that the document existed, although the FBI repeatedly said it's unverified, and made a big show of basically trying to chalk it up to nothing. Then they had to issue a subpoena to actually get the FBI to show them the document, and now they're able to go in and have these briefings where they're able to basically view the document and take notes, and now they're talking about the actual contents of it. So it was quite a long process to actually getting to the heart of what's even in the document. What's also interesting is that this allegation regarding the payment of funds from the Ukrainian energy company Burisma came from a confidential informant who was rated as highly credible by the FBI. So this is not a case of like Christopher Steele shopping, Russian disinformation to the media and then the FBI using media reports to verify it. They apparently had very high confidence in whoever this source was. So I think it definitely warrants further investigation.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating the detail that this occurred around the same time President Joe Biden and his allies helped oust Ukrainian prosecutor Viktor Shokin. That tied with the informant reportedly advising Burisma to hire legal counsel to defend against the prosecution. Like, these details make it even more concerning what's going on here. The FBI routinely ignores whistleblower reports. I mean, not things of this scale, perhaps. We don't really know what's not declassified, but we do know that the FBI tends to decide what to investigate based on political motivations, probably more than any sense of justice, right? They don't have to be elected to maintain their positions. They're not held to the same standards as a lot of other public officials. We know the FBI ignores reports when people say, hey, I think this guy might be a mass shooter. We've got some concerning stuff here. They don't look into it. We find out afterwards. It's a big problem with the FBI, what they choose to investigate or not. There's a lot of loss of trust here. I would like to see this thoroughly investigated, even if it's years later. I don't know if we'll get the kind of politicized response because it's Marjorie Taylor Greene at the head of this. I don't like Marjorie Taylor Greene, but that doesn't mean because she's the one speaking to the press that I'm going to say, well, this is ridiculous. It's hard to take her seriously, but it seems that this is serious.
It is very serious. And your point about the prosecutor is interesting because a lot of the mainstream media has basically used the defense that Shokin was fired because he apparently wasn't investigating corruption enough. But the one case that he was investigating was Burisma, which is exactly at the heart of this scandal. It's the company that was paying Hunter Biden millions of dollars for his work sitting on the board when he has no tangible experience related to energy policy while Biden was vice president. And we also have these new reports from James Comer, the head of the House Oversight Committee, that found that the Biden family received $1 million from an allegedly corrupt Romanian official, as well as millions from Chinese businesses that were routed through various shell companies and overseas bank accounts in an attempt to apparently hide the source of the payments. And then that was distributed among several different family members. I think about 9 to 12 at this point have been recipients of the money. And in the Romanian case, the payment started in 2015 at the same time that then Vice President Joe Biden was supposed to be again in charge of corruption in Romania, and then stopped in 2017 shortly after he left office. So there's a lot of there that the House Oversight Committee is looking into, and it is a shame that this has become a partisan political thing when corruption, no matter who it's coming from, is an issue that Americans obviously really care about because they want to know that their public officials are actually doing what's in the best interest of their country and not using their positions to either get rich or sell out the country for influence abroad.
Yeah, it's almost more glaringly obvious when you look at what the United States does abroad, what the motivations of people in power are politically in the United States, because since we decided that we are going to become an imperial nation and go off to Hawaii and take it as a territory and then eventually, annex Hawaii as a state, the motivation there was pretty explicit. It was to secure foreign markets because we had this problem of overproduction in the United States. So the guiding North Star of our foreign policy since the very beginning of it, shortly after the United States was founded, on the principle that nations should be free from colonial power, then we decided to become one. That's pretty a shocking shift. But it's been that case ever since. It seems to me that our relations with Ukraine and many other nations are guided by economic motivations, not for the interest of the American people, but for the elites and those in power. In this case, the Bidens. In many cases, it's just the heads of multinational corporations. Whatever benefits them and their exploitation of labor abroad and extraction of resources abroad is the foremost consideration in our foreign policy and interference in other nations. And so I would like to see both parties say, we need to change how we do foreign policy. We need the people in our democracy to have more of a say, not just elites with exclusive information that's not available to the public. We need elected officials representing us, not appointees of people who are the very elites who benefit from our foreign policy only being that of what multinational corporations want.
Yeah, and one of the few things that I agreed with Joe Biden on was that we should have withdrawn from Afghanistan. I disagree with the way that he did it. Obviously, it was a disaster. But the concept of doing it was correct. And it was first brought forth, of course, by former President Donald Trump, who really broke with the establishment when it came to the question of foreign intervention. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we keep sending $10 billion packages to Ukraine when it's known to be a very corrupt country that has issues with accounting, so to speak. There's no indication of where the money is actually going. Sometimes we send weapons and then we somehow find an additional $10 billion of weapons to send. And it's all very shady. And it reeks of this idea of getting the corrupt government on your side so that you can have influence or some kind of financial benefit. And all of that is a separate question, obviously, of who you want to win the war and whether Russia bad or Russia good. It's just the reality of the situation that we spend so much money that could be so well utilized at home for all of these risky foreign interventions that have no tangible or conceivable positive impact on life here in the U.S.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And it's pure hypocrisy. Bree pointed this out on Rising not too long ago, that if this war, our defense of Ukraine and our support of Ukraine, was really about we can't have imperial powers invading other nations, why would we not be sending troops to defend the people in Palestine and the border there? It's been very obvious if you watch the Israeli border over time, they're taking land that is historic Palestine. And the encroachment, even over the last half of a century, is pretty traumatic. So I think them making that moral case is compelling if you don't consider any other invasion anywhere else in the world. And so it's very clear that there's other motivations here, and it's seeming that they're economic ones.
Yeah, I think that's quite right. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. More Rising after this.